What's going on, Flock? Welcome to another episode of the Flock Files. I'm your host, Corey, and today I just wanted to talk about some more assistant coaches that have been hired, some interesting interviews, Derrick Henry and Hollywood Brown, over this past week leading up to the Super Bowl, the potential future of the Ravens schedule, as well as some fun free agency ideas that I've seen being pushed around throughout the media. Over this past week, Derrick Henry has been doing interviews leading up to the Super Bowl. He was on the Kay Adams show, as well as some other podcasts. And one of the podcasts he was on, they asked him if he was through with his career, or feeling like he was hitting the end. And one of the things he said is that he still has a lot to prove, that he does not view himself as a Hall of Fame running back quite yet. Obviously, if he were to retire today, he is. But in his mind, he's trying to stay humble. He says he still has a lot to prove. He still has a lot to do, a Super Bowl being like the number one thing on his list. And he went on to say that he feels like he's going to continue playing for quite some time still. So that's very interesting, especially, he's older and he has a lot of miles on him, even coming from college, but he was second rusher in the league last year. So, if his body's telling him he can keep going, I believe it, because he hasn't slowed down yet. Even in a rough year last year, he still finished second in rushing, which is incredible. So that's always fun. Hopefully he can re-sign and stay with the Ravens, for a couple more years. I would love that. We got some utility guys in Keaton Mitchell and Rasheen Ali, but maybe down the road, if we were to draft a young running back, to eventually replace Derrick Henry, but have him be able to learn from Derrick from the background for a couple years before moving on from Derrick. The fact that Derrick is willing and feels like he can play for quite some time still is just awesome news. Also on the Kay Adams podcast that he was on, there's been some swirling rumors that A.J. Brown is a possible target for Baltimore this offseason. Kay asked Derrick about it. Derrick obviously played with A.J. Brown in Tennessee, and Henry was all about it. He said, please, we welcome him in Baltimore. I think that's every fan and how we perceive that situation as well. Please come. I've been saying it from the get-go. I think the thing that the Ravens are missing is that true number one big body receiver. I get it. Speed is fun. Hollywood Brown was fun. We have more coming about him. Zay Flowers is fun. But Zay Flowers isn't a true number one receiver. I don't really care what anyone says. We force him to be, and we feed him enough to the point where he acts like it, but he's not a true X. He's just not. You need someone who's 6 foot or taller, a big-bodied possession receiver, and that's what A.J. Brown would bring to this team. I think that would be awesome depending on, the money and what he's asking for. But I would love to see A.J. Brown with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers. And if we keep Bateman or if we bring in a young receiver, I think that's an awesome receiving core. Again, I don't think the Ravens have had a true number one since Anquan Boldin. And look what we did when we had Anquan Boldin. We went on a Super Bowl run. He was unstoppable. That's the kind of guy that you need. You need a big body. I love these small guys, and I love Zay Flowers and what he does. And Tyreek Hill obviously is a great small guy. Steve Smith back in the day was a great small guy. But I feel that we still need a big-bodied receiver, and we don't have that right now. At least we don't have one that – we have Rashad Bateman, who's a little bit bigger than Zay, but for whatever reason, his development hasn't been great. He had a really down year this year, and I don't know what the future holds for him. Moving forward, another assistant coach hire. The Ravens are bringing in Lou Esposito. He's coming over from Michigan. He was the D-line coach over there. He's going to help with the D-line over here. I think, I always say throughout this process that every hire has been an amazing hire. I don't know much about him, but I do know that Michigan's defensive line and front seven has been pretty stout over the last couple of years. So, bringing just another guy, especially that he's from the college world, so his prime focus is developing guys. he's in a coaching situation constantly year after year where he's getting these young guys and he needs to develop them to progress in their careers and become available to play at the next level in the NFL. So I think he's going to be huge for like Peebles and Mike Green and some of these younger guys that still need a little bit of tweaking and developing. I think his way of doing that at the college level is going to really help out our team going forward. So as much as I don't know anything about him personally, I do think, having a mix of college coaches and NFL coaches are good, because someone coming fresh out of college like Esposito, he still has it in his system that he's there to prepare guys and to help build them to their full potential. Whereas sometimes you get NFL coaches that have been in the NFL for some time, they kind of lose that perspective of evaluating and having to teach, whereas they're already playing with professionals. So that's where you see teams sometimes, coaches and coaching staffs that can't develop players very well. And unfortunately, that's kind of been us over the last couple of years. Mike Green didn't have a great year last year. Odafe Owe, his whole time he was here, he didn't really do much in Baltimore. There's just been other people. Rashad Bateman's a great example. There's just been some people on both sides of the ball where our lack of development has been very large over, the last 6-7 years. And that's just not something that we're known for. We're known for bringing, especially on the defensive line, bringing in, either dogs or players that have potential and turning them into dogs. And we haven't been able to do that recently. So I think this hire definitely helps. Some other news is coming from the Cowboys being announced playing in Brazil as one of their home games this upcoming season. The Ravens are one of the Cowboys' home games. So we could potentially be playing in Brazil this year. I don't love that. I don't like the international games. I get it. The NFL wants to push for fans all over the world. They already have fans all over the world, but bringing them, games that they get to see, it's just expanding the league, and I get it. But from our perspective, usually those games aren't the best with the jet lag and different time zones and, just a different way of life over there. And I would rather just have the games played in America. I know that probably sounds terrible to a lot of people, but I'm being selfish here. I want a Ravens win every week, and you put up a really good team against a really bad team and take them and put them abroad, you don't know what's going to happen, just because, like I said, the travel and just being out of the ordinary for so long, because it's not just you go there for a weekend or the night before. You got to be there for like weeks in advance to get accustomed to your schedule, and I just don't think it's a good recipe for winning. So hopefully we get to dodge that bullet and we can enjoy watching other teams play overseas or in other countries. And then last but not least, everybody and every team outside of the Raiders is having a lot of fun with the Maxx Crosby news. It's been officially out that he does want to trade and he does not want to play for the Raiders any longer. Him wanting out of Oakland, like I said, that brings, tons of imagination and hope for every other team in the league. I think for the right price, obviously bringing in a guy like him in a position where we have a desperate need for a game-wrecking, game-changing edge. But it just depends on what you got to give up. I don't feel like I'm comfortable enough giving up our entire future. And then on top of that, whoever lands him is going to have to pay him. He's going to want to be the highest paid edge rusher in the league, in history. So you're going to have to pay him too. And I just feel like this team has way too many holes, way too many needs on the offensive line, the defensive line. We could really use another cornerback, in my opinion, like I said, with A.J. Brown or Jordan Tyson from Cot. Like, we could use another receiver, a big-bodied receiver. There's just areas where we still an outside linebacker to pair with Roquan Smith. There are needs that we have, and I feel like going all in for that one guy and then paying him a massive contract restricts us from really being able to do anything else. that's pretty much saying that the Ravens feel that they're a Maxx Crosby away from winning the Super Bowl. I just don't think that's true. I think we have, again, a lot of needs and a lot of, holes that we still do need to fill. It is fun to imagine, though. And, again, if it were to happen and the Ravens make it work somehow, I'm not going to be against it when it happens. I'm going to be pumped because I think Maxx Crosby is a dog. I think he is legit a Raven at heart. He belongs in our system. It's just looking at it from a perspective of, are we going to be able to do everything else that we need to do while also landing him? But, as far as trading the first-round pick, I'm cool with that. I don't want to trade away too many picks, but the first-round pick, I'm cool with it because the chances of hitting a first-round pick that turns into as much production as Maxx Crosby or more is very, very, very slim. So if you can get a guy that's in his prime, that's already a proven dominant rusher in this league, then I am completely okay with giving up that first-round pick. Hollywood Brown was also on the Ripken show, I think yesterday, if not yesterday, earlier this week. And, he had a lot of good things to say. He kind of talked about his time in Baltimore, as well as him standing up for Lamar Jackson. He said that he used to hate when people said that the Ravens had to completely rebuild their system around Lamar Jackson. And he went on to say how Lamar Jackson is the system, and Lamar Jackson can literally play in any system. And he's one of the most talented, if not the most talented quarterback in the league. And as Ravens fans, at least us real Ravens fans that aren't fake and hate on Lamar and think he's a quitter and all that, we agree with that. We see that. Lamar is amazing. This Ravens team isn't built specially to cater to Lamar and his abilities. Lamar is the team. Lamar can go to any team. He can go to a West Coast team, an East Coast team, wherever, a pass first team, a run first team. Lamar can play in any single type of scheme, and he's going to dominate. The whole idea that the Ravens had to completely switch up their roster and build around Lamar to make him what he is today is just nonsense. He is the greatest quarterback, in my opinion, in the league, the most athletic. He can play in any system, any scheme. And, I really like that Hollywood Brown is sticking up for him and stuck up for him back in the day. I know they were super close, both coming out of South Florida, so that's really cool. Hollywood Brown kind of contradicts my earlier take that we need a bigger receiver, but I honestly wouldn't mind seeing Hollywood Brown back in Baltimore. Let's finish what we started. Zay Flowers and Hollywood Brown, and then go get still a big receiver. Trade Rashad Bateman or just sign a bigger receiver. I mean, come on. That's a receiving core made in heaven. I think Hollywood still has a lot to offer. He's still relatively young. And I think pairing him with his best friend on, he's not going to require a ton of money. So bring him in for a couple years and see what we can reunite there and start there. I would be very open to bringing Hollywood back. I don't think that's a bad move at all. And then just some last little notes. Some fun players that are playing tomorrow who I think the Ravens could target in the offseason and could, maybe help us out a little bit. One of them being Chason. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent this year, edge rusher on New England. He had 31 tackles and 7.5 sacks this year, which is second most on his team. And honestly, his playing time, he's not even a full-time starter. And he's only started 10 games for the Patriots, and again, he had a limited role. So having that production with limited starts and a limited role, not a full-time starter, I think that's awesome. That's the type of production that we need on the Ravens. Another one is DB Tariq Woolen. He's also going to be an unrestricted free agent from Seattle. I think he still has a lot to offer. He's a very aggressive cornerback. He is still relatively young. He doesn't turn 27 until May. So I do think that that's a veteran presence that we can bring into the DB room. And I think those two guys are the top two guys, playing tomorrow that I would love to see the Ravens maybe go try and get. But if they don't, there's plenty of other guys out there. I'll do a deeper dive into some free agents, in some later videos, as well as we still have the draft, and this draft is super deep, mainly in the trenches on both sides of the ball, but the Ravens seem to always find talent everywhere. And with this new coaching staff, I'm really excited to see what, their game plan is and how they attack the offseason. But anyways, that about wraps it up for today's episode. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave your comments. Let me know if you agree with some of the free agents I talked about and what you would like to see happen. Whether you think we need to bring in a big body receiver, you think we're okay with the guys that we have, and what your feelings are about going to get Maxx Crosby and potentially having to give up a lot of our future, as well as paying him a huge chunk of money.